It's Arabic for the hereafter, and then my middle name, which you'll see me use a lot once I share, my brand story. It actually means um, bright light. And so one of the unique things about me, which is also what sets me apart brand wise, is that I was saved by the light, basically. So I am also a childhood eye cancer survivor. So if I happen to be looking at you, or I'm looking at a screen and you may see something that looks like a lazy eye, it's actually a prosthetic eye. So I've been diagnosed with a rare childhood eye cancer since I was 9 months old, and this is being recorded in the month of September, which is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So you will hear me go back and forth between, medical advocacy as well as the personal branding and how I was able to do that, build my own personal brand, and how you can do the same thing too. So interactive means I have a little bit of a workbook that you'll be looking at. And then at the end of the call, you'll get ways to connect with me if you're like, okay, I saw the workbook, I want my own version of the workbook, or I want to work with you, things of that sort. So I'm just going to share my screen. And yes, I use Canvas, so you probably see all the Canvas things. And yeah, so basically that's not gonna work. So basically I am a brand strategist. So that means empowering you to confidently tell your story by making sure that your brands are inclusive and cohesive and you're confidently telling your story. The same way that you pitch yourself, with your dates and your friends, you still need to do the same thing for your own personal brand. So I've been doing that technically for over a decade, but I am a millennial, so I'm one of those that I have been on the internet since for 20 years technically, but I didn't really start confidently telling my story until a little over 10 years ago. I had an aha moment where I had to remember that okay, the same things that I did offline, the same thing that I did when I was in school, where I had to let people know like, hey, I am a childhood eye cancer survivor. That means I cannot see you in my right eye. And that also means that I may not hear you because I wear hearing aids as a result of the radiation treatment. So those taking the same thing of how I had to advocate for myself and tell people about me and let people know of the way that I'm different, you got to bring that online. And so having been glued to the internet, but also being like a second generation entrepreneur, both of my parents created their own businesses. And I've seen the way they've interacted with people, and I've seen the way they've had to kind of talk about who they are, what they do, why they're different, and why someone should invest in them, for example. So I was able to take what I've learned and just really just kind of be innovative in the marketing and digital marketing industry, even as we utilize AI nowadays. But I think, what sets me apart from others is making sure that you are cultivating your brand. So I think the word is really cultivating, but then also some people call me a brand therapist because a lot of it, especially if you have overcome a lot of trauma, you are that generational curse breaker in your family. It can be hard to want to confidently tell your story because, I mean, when you're going through it, you're like, who else would even understand what I'm going through? But the more confidently you tell your story and the more you tell it in a way that is clear and concise, you never know that you're actually building your own community. So that's what I've been doing online for the past 10 years, and I'll be teaching you to do the same thing. So there will be a few more links also, if you did want to check out my TEDx talk, which is really the big thing of how did you get to the TEDx stage? I was basically telling my story over and over for the past 10 years. Again, both online and as well as offline, because they had to, check me out, right? Once I submitted the application, and when it matches everything, that's everywhere, then they know that you're the expert in your niche. Okay, so one of the first important things about brand building is really just building the person that either you needed when you were going through that trauma, that thing that really sets you apart, that thing that you were doing before you had all the responsibilities, mostly between the ages of 7 and 13. That's ideally your customer persona. That's also how you're intertwining it with utilizing your purpose. So when you're purpose building, you also know exactly who it is and how you're able to overcome that challenge. So, of course, write this down for yourself or think out loud if you want. But what are the demographics of your customer persona? So, right, I already said that I'm a millennial, right? And so that means I'm in my 30s. And then my interests, um, I have a lot of interests, but I always love just enjoying helping other people, regardless, no matter what it is, whether I am, the consultant, whether I am the strategist or the mentor, people come first for me, no matter what it is. Currently located in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but not for long. I've been blessed to be here for about 2 years and just really hit the ground running, just making sure that I um, engage myself in other minority-owned businesses, especially right here in the original Black Wall Street. So I am a woman, and most women gravitate towards me because I am a woman, because I've been through what most women go through. And education-wise, I did study, so you may see, something, especially when you check out my TEDx talk, if you haven't already, is that I talk a lot about, how a camera was able to detect the photograph, that was able to detect the cancer. But later on, I was taught how to take my own photographs and tell my own stories. So you may hear me talk a little bit more about my 10 or so years also as a photographer. But regardless, it's still intertwining with brand strategy and branding. So that's pretty much it. And then uh, video wise, you'll see me wearing something over my head, and it's basically a hijab or a scarf or a head wrap. And so that, I am I guess I would say, I mean, the more I do my ancestry, is probably more than 3 generations, but at least immediately, I am a Muslim, and then my parents converted to the religion of Islam when they were adults. So, regardless, I'm a woman of faith. I would not be here without knowing that there is purpose beyond me. The world does not revolve around me, and I'm not in control of any of the things that are happening right now in this season. Um, and so a lot of the time was also, just like I said, that there were times where you may have the thought about what are the what are people gonna think? What are they gonna say? Why should I even tell my story? I think for a while, I have older siblings, but I grew up an only child. So a lot of times I really just kept to myself. So much to the point that in kindergarten, I was told this story by my parents that the kindergarten teacher actually thought I was just mute, just didn't know how to speak. But my mom had to let the teachers know, like, no, she is super chatty at home. So being able to understand that one, I am safe. It is okay to share my story. That's how I was able to confidently share my story. First started out with, at first with the camera, right? I would share things through the lens, and we were always traveling. I was grateful to go to maybe about 20 plus US states, even before the pandemic kind of required people to go back on the road and do road trips, right? And then I was introduced to journaling. Once I obviously learned how to write, and then I was able to journal. And this wasn't until I think really middle school. So once journaling became my first actual job was I was a summer camp counselor, but I was also the one editing and writing and planning out the newsletter, the what was it, quarterly, bi-weekly newsletter we had during our summer. So writing then became speaking. So no matter what it is, I was always telling my story. But the more I practiced, the more confident I became, right? So now it's your turn. You can say out loud what you thought of, where your ideal customer persona, and the beliefs that you have that others resonate with, and the problems that you currently have. Actually, I'll start with that. What are the problems you currently have with sharing your story?
Wow, that is so inspiring. I mean, I've never really listened to your whole story, but just taking this time to really just really focus in on what you're saying. It's I mean, that's really inspiring. It's amazing. And I can definitely can relate to being, a quiet individual as a child, in front of other people, and when I get home, I'm chatty, chatty. And that, again, like you said, just going, just you have to really take the discernment of being, knowing that you're safe to share your story with other individuals, because that's another thing that we, even being right here as an entrepreneur, is kind of, it's scary out here. You know what I'm saying? So you don't know who to trust, And I think that what you've done within the 2 years that you've been here in Tulsa, you've definitely impacted a lot of individuals. We see you. You're shining. I absolutely love it. So yeah, that's awesome.
Well, thank you for that.
That's
Okay, so now I'm gonna go to the next page in the workbook, which is basically talking about the things we don't really want to talk about, right? We're gonna talk about the hard things. We're gonna talk about the rejection. We're gonna talk about the imposter syndrome. And we're gonna talk about ourselves because a lot of times, especially as women, we don't want to toot our own horns. But thank you for also, and also I would say not a lot of women will be able to receive the compliments that I just received, right? So I heard it, I received it loud and clear, and a lot of times I would take those with me, right? I'm starting to see a lot on social media where people are actually talking about brag books, basically. They have a separate page or a separate notebook where they make a note of whatever a woman or somebody complimented you on, they take that note because not every day is going to be a bright sunny day, and some days you're going to need those reminders. Because there will be days where you're going to be resistant to telling your story, resistant to using social media, resistant to even promoting your office. So I feel like it's a great segue actually that Katina just acknowledged me because I think that really kind of goes on to the next thing of the personality traits of being able to be ambitious, be creative, be a people person, and just also have a desire to make an impact, right? So that's basically off of the things that Katina said about me. So I think if I was to flip it on Katina, what do you think that you've heard people say about you, both at work, in your friends circle, in your family circle, that people would say, are unique about you and your personality?
well for me. I think a lot of people sometimes can maybe be kind of standoffish or maybe intimidated, and I don't know why. I guess um, I don't know if it's because I am quiet. I don't show up in a lot of rooms because I'm very intentional, and I've always have been that way. But once you get to know me, you know that I'm very, I'm a soft female. I'm a very soft female, um, but I can be firm as well. So I think that with that being said, I think that I have definitely made an impact as far as me really highlighting and wanting to be a voice in the community for entrepreneurs to say, hey, there is someone out here that really wants to um, set herself aside and really um, show that there's other entrepreneurs to be seen. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's awesome. I think that me coming out as an entrepreneur back in 2019, I didn't expect what I saw, what I saw and what I experienced as an entrepreneur. So you really have to really test the waters, so to speak. And I see a lot of people say, really find your tribe. I don't think that that's really necessary. I think basically you really have to fill the room. Um, I enjoy listening to the men speak. I feel like they need a voice in the community. So, I am really pulling for them to really come forward. Because I think a lot of women have kind of trying to claw over each other. You know what I'm saying? And I like your, how you present yourself. You said, Katina, hey, what can I do to help? That's how you present yourself. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. That's awesome. And that's how I am. I'm a servant. I have a servant's heart. So what can I do to help or serve is what I expected coming out, being an entrepreneur here in Tulsa. So I appreciate you so much.
No, thank you for that. And
You're
I
welcome.
think what's so interesting is, you in a way had like this session before we had the session with everyone else. But what's so funny is that you're already like on to the next page of the workbook, basically. You almost address every single thing of the next few questions that I have listed for everyone to answer. And so you said it all, right? At least for you, it's people who live in Tulsa who want to be entrepreneurs, and that's what keeps them up at night. They want to be of service to others. They want to make that difference. And they will happily spend money on other Black owned businesses. And they do notice that it may not always work that way, right? Because not everybody believes in that. And so they really want to know how, like, what do I need to do to make that difference? So those are a few questions that you can also keep in mind. And these are the same things that can also be intertwined with building your personal brand.
Yes, love it.
And so, yeah, that's pretty much that part. But now I want to move on to the social media side because there's so many social media channels out there, and a lot of times they're like, what is this social media channel? Why do I need to be on this social media channel? And so I'm gonna share a different kind of little checklist. It may be hard to read, so I'm gonna read it off, but then again, if you wanted it for yourself, I can provide a link. But basically, the one thing that I always tell people is to focus on one. Now for me, having for a while I was agency based, so I learned how to be on all of them anyway because all my clients were in different niches, different industries, and operated more and got return on investment more on different social media channels. So by the strategist, I'm always naturally researching how and why to use certain social media channels. But at the core of it, I always tell people, especially if they're like, okay, they want to use just 90 days to focus on one channel. So my tips that are always, you'll probably see something about copyright from like 2020, but these things are always relevant. So, these are also some things that I always see with people posting on social media, and then it's like post and leave. And so I'm just like, okay, you forget that you can't walk into somebody's party and just drop a flyer and leave. Right? It's the same thing on online. You can't just walk into a Facebook group and just promote yourself, drop a link and leave, right? The same way that you do it offline when you walk into the brick and mortar store, you got to bring that to the social and the digital marketing space. So text is always going to be my recommendation is always to include it, whether even if it's not what you're specifically talking about, always reintroduce yourself. Right. One of the other things that I tend to help people with is basically their help statement. So a shortened version of all of the questions that you just saw, that can be shortened for every single social media channel because also every single social media channel has different word limits or character limits. So make sure you have text before you even drop a link and or your hashtag or the hashtag of whatever you're talking about. Every single social media planner, every single social media channel at this point has stories features. Stories is a vertical platform that stays for 24 hours unless you choose to save it as a highlight and highlight it on your profile. So people are actually checking those out more. Um, and and even though you may like the pandemic really kind of shined a light on this, especially every Father's Day, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, things like that. So you'll see other people post on holidays, right? Announcing their marriages and engagements and births and pregnancies and all of that. But you can also be promoting your business during that time. Here we are, this is September, and we're probably at this point less than 30 days before the, usual Black Friday holiday, where a lot of entrepreneurs, if you focus and use the right tools, you actually can not just, gain momentum because you're showing off your new boo or your new family, but you also can be showing off your business. Live video is not going anywhere anytime soon. Now, understandably, um, some people aren't comfortable with showing their faces all the time. That's why they are that's why I think that's why people like TikTok because I'm starting to watch how people are using TikTok and especially Instagram Reels as well, where you can record your own audio. For example, I just got this new camera. Let me see if I can pull it up. One of the I just finished at a speaking engagement. And so, I had a photographer friend just basically do the photos and videos for me. And so I was like, what is this camera you're using? And so she's a photographer too, right? So she still has a background in photography, had been doing it for over a decade, just like me. And so I'm like, what is this camera you're using? And so basically the way that she was able to turn in the edits was um, she can separate the audio and the video. So although there are moments where I remember she recorded a video of me talking, but the way that she was able to edit it, it sounded like a voiceover. So you can use certain photos, you can use just, I call it B-roll because I also have a slight film background too because I study photography in Washington, D.C. And so use B-roll of the day in your life, even if you want to be faceless, but showing, using your hands, using your car, using, anything that shows a fraction of who you are, even if you're uncomfortable using the face. But always use a video. And so, anyways, this is the camera. Like I said, I'm moving out of Tulsa, but I'm also going to be doing a lot of traveling. And so, people are going to want to see that video, right? So, it's just this handheld camera. Like, they've used these used cameras, and I had no idea, how people were using it because you may see the little microphone everywhere, but it's so small that you literally just clip it onto your shirt and just record yourself speaking. I used to have, well, I'm gonna bring it back, again, but I'm working on my own strategy because I got big goals coming, so I got to make sure I'm organized. And so all you need is for a podcast started off as audio only. And so I think what happens is we forget to keep it simple and think we have to have a whole setup. But I will be honest that this is gonna make it so much easier for me because I'm also team accessibility, where although I am okay with using captions online, and that's another feature that social media channels have that I highly recommend if you don't automatically set up a setting that use apps like CapCut to add them. Because, for people like me who are hard of hearing, if I'm not already wearing my headphones or wearing my hearing aid, and I happen to scroll past the video and I can't read your lips, I'm gonna skip right past it. I'm not gonna know what you're talking about because I'm not gonna be able to hear it. I'm not gonna take the time to get my headphones, get my hearing aid to hear it. So I probably just added something in. And I'll probably type it in so you know exactly what I'm talking about. But and then add captions to videos. So most pages now will do automatic captions. So now location geotagging, it's helpful because you want to attract people who are also in your area. But I think because I've traveled to 10 plus countries too, so I know also that for some people they gotta kind of be careful about not to tag exactly where they are at the time that they are. So even for me, I've gone old school a bit, with just being present and in the moment of just where I'm at. And yes, I'll take pictures of whatever I'm going through because I'm going to eventually share in the stories, make a YouTube video or something. But geotagging means you're tagging a location and let people know about this specific location. If you have a brick and mortar business, you should want to have people tag in your location. Um, Now the hashtag thing, I think we're gonna have to change this back to the word keywords because what happens is just like history repeats itself, social media will basically kind of go in a circle. And so at this point, you may not put that number sign or pound sign in front of it anymore, but if you put the word in your caption, it will pick up essentially like a keyword, no matter what social media channel you're on. Um, and we share your posts by others. I think this is exciting. For me, I think about those birthday posts. A lot of people get tagged when it's their birthdays, or they get tagged when, they got a major speaking engagement, right? So, be sharing the post that other people tag of you by others. And of course, yeah, that's what being social is, showing other people's posts. But just make sure, I think one thing that does bug me about seeing those who are building personal brand, if they're not the shade room and they thrive off of other people's content, don't post more of other people's content than your own, especially if you're not at the Beyonce level yet, where you can just post nothing but you and put other people on and all of that, right? So you really gotta go back to those questions that we formed and talk about you, toot your own horn. And then of course that's where the collaboration comes in and have other people reshare your post and tag you and brag about you. So that's pretty much that about that page. So what did you hear? What idea came to mind? What action are you gonna take?
I think that's good. I didn't know the term of geotagging. That's new to me, and I think that it's really I think the pandemic brought a lot of millennials out of the closet, for so to speak, for its entrepreneurship. And then I think for the first what maybe 2 years, it was like a floodgate to the open, right? So I think that now, I'm just speaking from a perspective of living here in Tulsa. It's like some of them have kind of shied back. I don't know if it was like we were saying, building relationships, communication, sharing, being visible on on social media, showing your face and things of that nature. Um, for me, kind of going back to what you had on your one slide, you mentioned, what do you do for a living? I think that's important because a lot of entrepreneurs are still working to support their business as well, and I think that hasn't been communicated enough amongst the other entrepreneurs. I think that may have deterred a lot of relationships, may have dampened a lot of relationships. Um, Speaking social media, I've seen like a lot of personal things that have been spewed out there on Facebook and sort of instead of their businesses. You really don't know what they do. You know what I'm saying? I know you mentioned that, toot your own horn and things of that nature. When I had the shop open, I would always, post, okay, Roots, or whoever was inside my shop. But I didn't see that being shared amongst those who were inside of the shop. So that's where I said for us, the communication and building relationship, building rapport, understanding that we do work outside of being an entrepreneur. Um, I like that you've traveled, so you're very diverse with dealing with people. So I think that's great. A lot of us coming out of corporate America. It's like, okay, we gotta, we got a lot of work to do, and I believe that it will be done and it can be done. Um, I think that your strategy for branding um, and this video itself, I think is going to be really good. So I
Great.
appreciate that.
Yeah. And I definitely, second the part about at least, using your own content, right? Because even if you're so inspired by somebody else's content, make your own version. Don't, literally copy and paste, but I feel like, people should be starting to make their own content because people need to know who you are, just like and they already know what's going on with Shannon Sharp, right? But people need to know what you are up to.
For
And obviously, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And see, and like I said, going back, I didn't know for the geotagging that sharing where you're at your location and things of that nature. Actually learned about the tagging from another entrepreneur. So I didn't know that they even existed. Just me coming out here like, okay, what is Facebook? Really about? Besides posting with your family and what's going, X, Y, and Z. But for a business perspective, I think that most businesses should use that platform for their businesses and not personal use because it can become draining um, to an extent and kind of pull people away when it's too much. You know what I'm saying? When you're trying to navigate balance, work, life, and entrepreneurship and family.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And honestly, I mean, I'm a millennial, but I'm an older millennial, and although most of my millennial friends are like off of Facebook right now, like if I must keep in touch with them, it's Instagram DM or WhatsApp. Like I have their number. I'm either talking to them through Instagram DM or WhatsApp, or we have some of the other previous CEOs, night out speakers that actually post more on LinkedIn. But I'm still team Facebook because I guess yeah, it's still slept on. There's so many things that have been building and brewing since I've been on it. I think I saw my Facebook memory. There's a feature called Facebook Memories where it'll show you what you talked about or what you tagged, in the past history, really, since you've been on Facebook. And so I've been
yeah,
on it for 15 years and I've seen it evolve, especially for businesses. Like that's how I had to learn how to self market myself before I even, did any marketing certification program or had any marketing clients. Like I had to learn how to use those business pages, not the personal profile, but the business pages. And again, like I said, social media is going to go into a circle. Now the
yeah,
personal profile can be a business page if you choose to convert it to that, right? And
right,
use your data, your analytics, and use it to define what you want to see, what you don't want to see. You can follow and unfollow pages and groups And
Yes.
ads, I feel like it's more advanced for people because I have also unfortunately seen people just kind of waste money. The same way that people will go into a group and post and leave, they will sometimes,
Mhm.
pay for a flyer that's not going to convert because everybody questioned, everybody has like, who's all going to be there? How much is it going to cost? None of their questions
Right.
are answered on that ad. So of course, they're going to scroll right past it. And the same
Right.
thing, like I said about videos, if it's not captions already on it or the captions are not enabled in the setting, people are going to scroll right past it. So again, I'm always going to be team Facebook. But of course, I'm always like make sure that you're on a platform that you already know how to do it because unless you're hiring people like me who know how to operate these things and will do it for you, you got to know how to do it yourself
Mhm.
and how you want to use it. So.
That's true. That's true. I love it. Okay.
Okay, and so we're again this synchrony because we're on to the next thing where I'm literally talking about how do you use these social media platforms now that you know what kind of content you want to post, who you are as far as how you're going to tell people who you are, which one are you going to use? And so, my tips are for I think I pretty much Facebook and every single one of them. So ask for testimonies and reviews. Like for example, Katina, my request for you as soon as we finish this is you tag me in a post telling me what you took away the most from this call and tag me on my page, right?
Okay.
And um and sometimes you may have to just grab the review when you see it, right? If somebody just leaves a comment because they're in a comment leaving day, a good day, and they're like, I remember this one session and it impacted me in this way. Like sometimes you gotta screenshot that. And like I said, something about a brag book at the beginning, the same
Mhm.
thing of you write it down, you also gotta save those screenshots or copy that text, save it somewhere, not just for you to feel better and beat imposter syndrome, but also that's how people know, okay, she's the real deal. I can trust her, to uh, do this service or I can buy this product and I know it's going to work for me.
Right.
Um, and I will say that unfortunately Facebook notifications are wonky at this point because there's so many that I don't see
I
because
know,
there's
me
so much
too.
going on. Yeah,
Yes, it's so busy. I'm like, oh Lord. Yeah, it is. It's
yeah.
been busy on Facebook. I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, I'll go to my Facebook page and I don't know, um it's been like hot for like a cool minute. I'm like, okay, where are these people scrolling? What are they looking at on my page? I'm trying to go see what they looking at on my
Hmm.
page. Because I go to some of the other pages, and like I know some people probably just, sit and just post, every now and again. But I'm like, wow. But like, like I said, you never know who's on your page, who's scrolling or maybe reaching out to you for information or a connection. Like recently I had someone reach out to me, wanted to connect with another entrepreneur that met at CEO's night, and I connected them to, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I like about bringing people together for a purpose. And I like I said, I think it's beautiful. It's absolutely
Yeah,
great. I love
absolutely.
it.
But yeah, just make sure like you're good at, being social, but a lot of people will either like, I'll be at fault where um it'll look like I didn't respond if it's a decent compliment and it'll look like I didn't respond because I didn't see it. Like it didn't show up in my notification. It didn't give me a push notification that somebody left a comment. So I would see if I'm casually scrolling, it'll show up on my feed. I'm like, oh, well, thank
Oh,
you.
right. Yeah, love
All
it.
right. And so, this is just a reminder for people who are forgetting the word social in social media. It gets two-way street. And so, you'll see on my, when you check out my social media handles everywhere else, I follow a lot more people than that are following me. But that's also how I'm
Yeah.
able to know, like, okay, I can go to Katina because she helps other CEOs. I can, go to the person in charge at Building Tulsa because they have so many different programs for the specific CEO. So I
Mhm.
tend to follow. That's the habit I'm trying to, uh, get out of. But I tend to follow more people than people follow me because I'm like I need to know who's doing what and which needs I can be that dot connector. But
Yes,
don't forget to
absolutely.
be social. Don't forget about the social part of it. Um, Now the other thing is images. Now what happens is sometimes text posts can get lost in the shuffle because they're pushing video a lot more. So if you're not, if you haven't already recorded a video of your hand, of your food, of whatever, there are lots of, copyright allowed videos and images that can be used. And one of my favorite websites, actually Canva at this point, Canva has images that are copyrighted that you can use copyright to a certain extent that you can use it as your own. But my suggestion is always to make your own, photograph. But
Hmm.
always have photos and videos first because text posts, unless you're using Threads, the app it's if you're not familiar with Threads, Threads is still a part of the Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp family, but it was text based first. But my favorite part about it is that you can put text, images, GIFs, memes, things of that. So you can put anything to express yourself on there, but it's text based first. And even if you don't put any images or videos, as long as you're using the right keywords, the right hashtags, it will be sent to the right people. So either way, it sounds like a lot, but I feel like once you do the one thing for 30 days and you pay attention to what's working and what's not working, it'll become easier. And then it'll become easier to the point where you can tell somebody else, delegate it to somebody else, delegate it to AI, any one of the generative AI apps that are out there, because there's a lot of them out there. Google has their own, Canva has their own.
Hmm.
My favorite is, I think I put it let me see. Mention it somewhere. But there's one called Zapier. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
probably save it somewhere else. But there's one called Zapier for doing your automations. So my thing is you got to do everything manually before it'll automatically know. Like that's how your Netflix works, right? You have to choose what movies and TV shows you like manually before it automatically suggests things that you actually like.
I love it. Okay.
And that's pretty much the gist of it. Just a reminder to be social, but also make sure that your username ideally should be your name, and you should have that everywhere. Whatever is your name or your business name should be used everywhere.
Mm.
Um, and these are different marketing options that still work, even if it's not social. But at the
Yeah.
core of it, social is if you don't already have your own website, social is your website. That's what people are going to look for when they're Googling you. Before anything else shows up, your name and whatever you're talking about is what people are going to look up when they Google you. So that was a lot of information, but that's how you know that I know my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when you first got started, you said you've been doing this for over 10 years, right? Or a decade, right? So what prompted you to say, well, I think this is something that I feel like I need to share with the community.
Yeah,
And
well, it started out, I had a family friend that was, and I'm not going to even use the word aspiring because the minute you take any action to it, you are that. So I had a friend that was a singer. And so I think I had already just started building out my photography business page on Facebook. And I remember, well, she did two things. She was a hairstylist by day and then a singer at night, right? Or on the weekends or whatever. And so I think I had my hair appointment with her one day and I was like, hey, are you on Facebook? And maybe she was, handing out flyers or something for her show. And I'm like, hey, are you on Facebook? She was like, no, what is Facebook? Right? And the fact that I went on to literally give her a easy breakdown of what Facebook is. And I think probably her next question was, can you do it for me? I don't know what you're talking about. Sounds great. Sounds like I need it. Can you do it for me? And that's pretty much how it started. I had someone else who understood it. I was able to explain it in such an easy way of why it makes sense to them, why it should work for them, why they need to use it. And that's really how it became, a business for me.
okay, so how did you overcome any of the fears of sharing your story? What did you do?
I will be honest, I think there are two things that I did. One is I took a look at the other women entrepreneurs that I was inspired by, and I would see how I would, pay attention to that gut feeling. If I feel any sense of jealous or envious, that means, okay, I should be doing that, right? So instead of leaning into the jealous or envy feeling, just say, okay, what is it that I like about this? And so there's one entrepreneur who's by the name of Nicole Walters. And so there were two things that I did. I watched her how she uses her social media closely. And then I eventually invested in one of her programs, which she told me how she did every single thing. So those are two things that I did. And one of the things that I remember is that was the first um assignment, if you will, in her program is get comfortable with um talking about who you are and record a video. And even if you want to share it privately in the Facebook group, in the course program, to just get more comfortable. And even at this point, Instagram has a feature now where you can record a video, get used to talking to yourself, and you don't have to post it. If you like it, you just, put it away or archive it. If you do like it, you can then post it. So just it's just like riding the bicycle, just like um eating. You gotta driving, you gotta do it over and over and over until it's muscle memory.
Okay, another question. So what do you think your biggest accomplishment um since becoming an entrepreneur? The goals that you set for yourself. What is your biggest accomplishment?
Everything is so far, even with I feel like I'm about to name three. Three are like spitting out at me right now. So the first thing is the first thing is
Share,
is
share.
just being a cancer survivor and still choosing entrepreneurship. Like I can choose, the flexibility of a job. I can choose the flexibility of, a 9 to 5, but I choose entrepreneurship because I feel like that's more freedom for me. But also with that freedom came the opportunity to publish my book. And even with publishing my book, I was then able to get onto the TEDx stage, which I had been, same thing, not specifically Nicole Walters. I don't remember who was the first person that I was watching be on the TEDx stage. And I'm like, I want to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I declare that and set my mind to it and put imposter syndrome away,
Determination.
I was
Yes.
able to be on the TEDx stage. So, those are my three favorite accomplishments so far.
I love it. Okay, and then so what would you say to an entrepreneur, for investing? What would you tell them to invest in the most?
What kind of investing? Like what
Just in,
technology to invest in, or
investing and just investing, period. Just coming out a brand new startup. What would you tell them to invest in first?
invest in yourself?
Love it.
Yeah, because I think the one thing that is good about this upcoming generation is that we are happily, confidently talking about mental health and therapy. Because, just like you said, like if you work in corporate and all you've known is corporate, it's gonna feel, I've worked with women where it's gonna feel lonely because you're used to having this team or having this next person in your cubicle or having the standard of operations or handbook for how to do all these things. But you're literally starting from scratch because you're building the vision that was given to you. So make sure you invest in your mindset first. Even for me, I still heavily, participate in personal development seminars, and of course, I got referrals and recommendations for that. But then also that's where I know that that's the first pillar of my own program, my own coaching program. That happen. We got to make sure that you're in the right mindset to understand why this traumatic piece of your story is important for you to confidently tell. So invest in yourself first before you even pay for ChatGPT or Canva and all of those things.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I knew that, coming on the scene as an entrepreneur is to invest in myself. But I think that because I have a big heart, and I want to serve people, and I've always been that way. Lord help me. But I am now starting to invest more in myself, and understand that you can't take, people with you. And you have to be okay with that. And like you said, it's not the vision that was given to them; it was given to you, and you have to definitely own that and strive to get to that place. I think that's great. Okay. Yeah, y'all heard that. Y'all heard she said to invest in yourself first, coming out on the scene as entrepreneurs, your mental health, self-development, having those self-talks, and really just, doing the work, doing your own personal groundwork before even attempting to come out here on these entrepreneur streets, because it can be like you said, lonely, if you get out here and really know what you're doing. I love that. Okay. Yeah. I have one more question for you before we get ready to end. I should have 15 more minutes in case you want to share anything else. Um, since we are recording this, what would you what would you say to your, I'm gonna say, 18-year-old self? being the woman that you are now? What would you say to her?
Yeah, I think I would tell little Zaakirah to keep going and that she is loved. I think what will happen is it will get lonely because you're about to elevate beyond your wildest dreams because they're not your dreams. You may see everybody else fulfilling their dreams, but uh you have different dreams for a specific reason. So keep going and you are loved.
I love that. Because we do have a lot of junior entrepreneurs that are, coming out on the scene, and they look up to us. My son, even now, he tells me, he wants to be an attorney. He wants to be an astronaut. I tell him, say, you would be a phenomenal attorney because he likes to talk. Son, you would be great. You would talk them right out of this, down to the flow. But yeah, I think it's absolutely great to really be a example for the next generations, and to definitely be able to be those shoulders to stand on for those that are they're looking up to you or looking up to us in general. So I think that's great. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. If you want
Great.
to share anything else, we have about like 13 more minutes.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think I'll just reshare the page for those who want to connect with me, work with me. But whether there are three ways to work with me. Of course, there's you can just go search for the See Life Different See Life, just See Life Different YouTube, and that's where there's a bunch of free videos right now. And I will be also updating my YouTube, especially as I continue my international travels, and speaking engagements. So that's where you can start for free. If you're just like, okay, I like you, let me, see, get a feel for you a bit more, go straight to my YouTube. And my podcast is also, you can search on the social media, but it's also called See Life Different Pop. And then the next scale of kind of getting to know me, which is more on the storytelling side, is I have a paperback, ebook, and an audiobook called Seeing Life Through Different Lens. It's written by my mom and I. So it's mainly about just how we overcame all of the trauma of just being the only ones in the room and in the medical areas and just medical advocacy first and foremost. But a lot of people who read it and left reviews and had me on podcast and read the book really just said it's a book on how to be more grateful and how to just survive in life and thrive in life. So you can start there. And then once you know you're ready to um really, work with me either one-on-one or another group, there are one-on-one consultation options or there are group settings. I'm leaning toward group settings so that when I can keep it the third Tuesday of the month with kind of like an office hour. Similar to this, ask me anything. And we kind of plan out what are you going to take action on. And, for until the end of 2024, there'll be the third Tuesdays on Zoom. You can meet with me in a group setting to plan out either your branding, your marketing, your messaging, your mindset. All four of those pillars are what I choose when it comes to seeing your life and your business differently. So all of that can also be found either on my social media at Illuminous One, which again is the meaning of my middle
Be
name.
about 10 more minutes on this call.
Yeah.
10.
And also my email.
Huh?
And other than that, that's it. And definitely tag me on social media as well when you uh give your feedback. What did you take away from? What was your favorite part? Why should someone else watch this or even participate in the next CEO's night out?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, well, we can go ahead and stop this recording. Zaakirah, I think that you did a phenomenal job. Again, I appreciate you for coming on and sharing your story about how you, um, see life different, and I think it's a beautiful um, path that you're on. I wish you all of the blessings on your new, I don't know where you're moving to. I know you're going to be moving out of Tulsa here soon. So blessings on your move. And I just definitely look forward to working, very much closely with you here soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.